stuff is just bleh. Oh Lord. I had it one time when I was a child, and ever since then I knew something was wrong. I said, I don't think God wanted us to eat this one.
Well, it's all right to me. I mean, I put my own little seasoning on it and just,
Just
cook
just
it.
don't
And
just don't do me a favor and don't try to make scrambled eggs with it, try to make it look like scrambled eggs.
Because I look at it as eggs, or I use it as a meat patty. I slice it and make it as a meat patty. I don't use it for anything else. If I have that and I cook it, that's my meat. That to make I just gotta do what I gotta do, because I gotta sleep. I don't like sitting up for no 2 and 3 hours in the middle of the night because my feet is just heavy and can't sleep. So I gotta keep potassium in me and the magnesium. I got all these pills. I take 7 pills a day just to maintain this.
They used to make a good tofu burger at the Black Muslim Bakery that used to be across the street from All Nations years ago.
Yeah.
They used to make a good tofu burger there.
Yeah.
I haven't had it.
I thought it was supposed to be good for you.
It is, but it depends on where you get it from and, what brands. A lot of that stuff is depending on the quality of it, just like everything else.
They've been putting so much soy and soybeans and everything, and the research they're doing on it now, they're like, I don't think this is actually a good idea for us to consume so much soy. I mean, I know soy milk is bad for men specifically.
Right.
So, it's like, okay, well, what else is it doing? But you know what? Like, because the judge wants people to get off of all the medication that they're taking and find more natural ways of doing stuff without having to take so much medication. Because like all this medication, it just be killing people's kidneys and their liver. And I'm like, look, there's got to be another way. So I'm gonna give something to Pastor Dacus and forward it to you, because you don't want to have to stay on so much medication, because it's just killing people.
Yeah. Well, it's 5:06, so we're gonna get started. I got some interesting stuff I think you guys will like to talk about tonight. So let's have a word of prayer. Father, thank you for your goodness, your kindness, and your mercy. Thank you for your bountiful many blessings. We thank you for this time that we've come to share in thy word. And we would ask that you would allow our hearts and minds to become good ground, that we would receive the seed of thy word and then bring forth good fruit unto good measure. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. I'm going to talk tonight about, we've been doing the round table. And interesting, there was a couple of, what I want to say, theology graduates who wrote a book called The Round Table. And in the book, they're discussing some issues now that I've been having discussions with some other preachers about. And when I saw the book, it's like, oh, wow, this is really interesting, their discussion. And their discussion is centered around the issue we have with the church. Now, they say that their subject is dealing specifically or mainly with the Black church, but I believe this is starting to take place or has taken place with every church. And that is this revolution or new millennial thinking. and how people are taking their, how should I put it, their mistreatment by those who've been calling themselves Christians, and some of their experienced church hurt, things like that, and have now used that to deny true Christianity and some of the things that, you know, they were taught or experienced coming up. And what they do is they're using this mistreatment by others. I'm keep redoing my camera because it's acting up. But they're doing this, they're using this mistreatment to justify some of these new thoughts and things they're saying, and making these new trends. You know, it's like, you look how a lot of people now dress at church, how people now, you know, want to see how much they could still do like the world and still say that they're saved. How they have almost erased morality, not just in society, but even in the church. You know, music, the music style, and you know, even when you have now gospel artists collaborating a lot with secular artists, and their whole thing is doing it for the money. But what ends up happening is they end up taking on some baggage. The thing is that there is a thought process amongst millennials, especially, that their way of thinking or believing, it's not a new religion, but what it is, it's they call it, I think the term is called moral therapeutic deism. So what it is they serve a God that plays nice. And a lot of their responses about things is, would a loving God do this? Would a loving God punish you? Would a loving God send you to hell? You know, so it's like a moral therapeutic deism. They're putting God under a microscope, so to speak, but they want to lock him into only the good and the pleasant, but not the, you know, the retribution or the punishment for bad behavior. And now they have this thing that it's all about feeling good about yourself. And that's where they stop, and everything ceases right there. They want to just feel good about themselves. And they don't want to believe in a God who, as they put it, interferes with human affairs unless they ask him to, which has become a real problem, because when they asked God out of the schools, look what happened. Not only is he out of the schools, he's out of the home, and he's out of a lot of churches, you know, even to the point where this whole feel good about yourself has even filtered into the church aspect, where they have even ordained a drag queen now in the Methodist Church to be a pastor. So, I mean, these are the kinds of things that are going on now. And the book addresses it, I think, very well. I just started reading it. I picked it up, actually. I was preaching at a church Sunday, and it was in the pastoral office, and it belonged to one of the former pastors. Matter of fact, I knew him. And I just started flipping through the book, and it was so interesting. And I read so much, even before I went into service, that I went on Amazon and ordered the book. But it's excellent. It's called The Round Table, A Christian's Conversation with marginal, with marginal beliefs affecting the Black church experience. And that's what I keyed in on, was the marginal beliefs. There's so many people now who have marginal faith. I'll put it that way. And so it's not a total faith or a total submission to God. It's just, as long as it feels good and as long as it's comfortable, I'll go along. But if it makes me feel uncomfortable, or if it makes me look at myself in an uncomfortable way, and feeling that I'm not measuring up, then that can't be God. And that's kind of where they are. So anyway, that's what I want to talk about tonight. How do we deal with these marginal belief systems? And our message to this generation. And it's nothing different, because they had to deal with the same thing with us. All right, anyway, the floor is open. I see Sam trying to get in. I didn't see his, I don't know how long he's been waiting. Okay, ladies, the floor is open.
So your question is, how do we deal with it?
Well, my question is, how do we, respond to them? Have you had any experience with them? And do you think that it does exist? It's marginal beliefs or marginal, faith. We even got marginal salvation nowadays. They almost say.
Well, yeah, they'll cuss if they have to. Those type of people. They'll cuss you out if they have to. To answer all your questions, yes, I do think that that it exists. I definitely have seen it. It's what you would call watered down Christianity. That's what I thought you would call it. I kind of feel like, I know that a lot of these people didn't really have a good Sunday school experience, it seems like, because the first thing that came to my mind when you asked that was, go back to fundamental, basic Bible teaching, because the stuff that you get from there, the discussions from Sunday school, from Bible band, those things really, they would help people and to understand, where they needed to be, and, who God is, and, what one scripture means and what another one means. All that stuff is taught there, and questions can be asked and answered in those sessions as well, so that people can get better understandings. Now, this whole thing about, they're using their past hurts in the church from certain people and whatnot as basically as a way to justify their new views and the way they think things ought to go. Well, that's just about as, stable as sand. And it's going to crumble underneath. In fact, it's already crumbling underneath for some of those people that think that way, because when they go to try to stand on it and try to use it to help them out, and they realize, oh, this isn't as effective as I thought it was going to be. Well, yeah, that's what happens when you don't have a real foundation, when you built it on sand, when you decided that, oh, this is going to work for me. Like this whole self-love thing, I always knew that was going to blow up, because as has been talked about before, you're really just becoming more self-centered, and you're just pushing God out of it. Right. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. It exists, and it is detrimental, and
Yeah, and to we have a lot of this social that's happening now that I think is also affecting this, in that they are changing the roles of the male and female. I used to enjoy watching movies, where now though, because of my doctoral thesis and all that I did on the subliminal brainwashing of television and how the mind works, and started studying the manipulation of the television and movie industry. I now it's like, I get very turned off very quick now. For instance, you all remember, I'll just use this one. Thor was this mighty hero, strong guy, throw the hammer, could fly, and all that. Now Thor didn't turn Thor into a little punk. They got a woman now who is now got the strength. Thor can't fly. Thor can't pick up his hammer. Thor's out of shape. Thor got a beer belly now, and he's walking around, coward and scared. And if y'all watched that last movie, The Avengers, the End Game, the whole reversal of what Thanos had done was overthrown by a group of women who saved the world. You got to start, really paying attention to the messages. They're subliminal, but they're also very overt and covert at the same time. And this also affects society in the fact that now too, we have a lot of women who want to take over in the church. Personally, I don't think that's going to work. And it's not that women are less than and that women are the lower level. No, I had church mothers say to me a few weeks ago, well, Pastor Dacus, the wife is the neck. Y'all the head, but we the neck. I said, yeah, but mother, what if the neck got a crook in it? The head don't fare too well when there's a crook in the neck and it's stiff, because now instead of turning the head, the neck won't turn, so the whole body got to turn. But anyway.
I don't think that it's the women wanting to take over. I wouldn't say that. I would say that the men, it's not enough men to run it and take over, it's just that they're not there no more. That's what I would say. They just not there no more. The men is just not there no more. You don't see men in the church like you used to see back in the day when we was young. It's a bunch of women and their children. And then the children is, once they get to a certain age, they GONE.
Yeah, they gone.
See what I'm saying? So to say that the women want to take over, that's not right. The women don't want to take over. It ain't no man there to handle it, but it's a woman there that can handle it. And then y'all want to say the woman want to take over. That's not right.
Well,
I'd have to say historically, it kind of is. I mean, I'm not trying to be contrary, but based on what the literature that I have read and some cultures, it's there. It's there. It's not something that.
To know cultures, other cultures. I'm talking about blacks. I'm talking about what I know, and all I know is black. I don't know no other body's culture. I don't even care about that culture. All I care about is what I'm in. I'm in the black culture, and what right now, that's not what I would say is happening. I just would say that the men is not there. It ain't nothing but a bunch of women. So who's supposed to run it? Who's supposed to take over? Who's supposed to carry it?
And I agree with that. That I'm just saying on the like there's one on the one hand, yeah, you're right that in the Black culture that it's supposed. I mean, actually, that's why I said other cultures, because still, even if it's not just our culture, across the board, it's supposed to be the man, and it always has been. I'm like, you look at the Masai Mara and how they run their culture. It's a male-run culture. It's a patriarchy. But in recent years, for the Black community, it's become a matriarchy because of how things are been done. As Pastor DACUS said before, what I'm getting at is how things have transpired to move women in that direction, to think that they can. Because okay, so you look at the women who today they'll Pastor DACUS talked about the people that woman who was like, well, I don't need a man. Or the women that said, well, I'll get a man when I'm ready for it. He has to have this and this and that type of requirement. There's a lot of that mentality. And that's why I said, I don't think they're necessarily just saying, oh, they just want to take over, but they have that mindset of, I can if I have to. And that's not a good mindset to have. So I'm not saying I understand what you're saying, but I'm just saying it's not just that doesn't exist. I do think that potential is there, and it does exist, because that's why I said other cultures, and it's just a whole mindset. And when I say other cultures, I say it all because the devil has the same aim for everybody. He's trying to overthrow the human race. And what better way to do it but to cut it off by abortions, by having women take over and think we don't need men. And then you have these men who become basically useless, and they no longer want to bring families together, no longer want to do that anymore. And so you break that down even more. And I was just listening to the radio yesterday. They said the number one thing that is causing a lot of problems in society is no fathers in the home. So, it's all working together for the devil's plan to get us to think, oh, well, we don't need males. Women are just fine running it on their own. And so then you also had that whole movement where, oh, we want softer men. We want more men with, in touch with their feelings and this and that. And then all of a sudden they see that and they're like, oh, we don't want that. But then they're also making men to be out the villain. If you're masculine at all, they're like, well, that's bad. And then they're calling all men that did, you have a small group of men who abused women compared to the most men in general who just don't do that, who don't believe in that, but they painted all men the same way. So what I'm addressing is the fact that it all boils down to the devil's plan to try to destroy the human race. He doesn't want us to operate the way that God appointed us to. So that's why I say I can agree with the fact that there are some women who have that mindset of, I could take over. If I have to, I will.
And what I'm referring to is this shift that society has introduced, that very thing, and they'll complain, but they won't look at the playing field in a fair way. For instance, there was a debate a few months back about, actually it was last year, and they were complaining that the women in the WNBA salaries are nowhere near the salaries of the men in the men's league in the NBA. And they were complaining about, the fact that, they don't get the same kinds of contracts or treatment and benefits. But at the same time, they don't draw the crowds that the men draw. They don't earn the games, don't have the attendance like the men, and they don't sell the tickets and make the revenue like they do in the NBA league. But they want the millions, and the men in the NBA actually contribute a percentage of their income to the WNBA to keep it going, to pay the salaries that the women are getting, And so you hear a lot of this, and I've always have been against people just using statistics and throwing out information without all the facts. For instance, they will tell you that there's a greater percentage of Black people on welfare than white people.
That's
okay.
a lie.
But that's a lie because, well, here, let me put it. Here's the trick to that. It's a greater percentage as far as, let's say, if 12% of our women are on welfare, single mothers on welfare, and they have 5% on welfare, here's the difference. The difference is 5% of 220 million is way more than 12% of 12 million. See, that 200 million of them, 5% of them are on welfare, which means you had 11 million of them on welfare. There are 12 million of us, and if you had 12% on welfare, that would be, say, 144,000, and this was like just in overall numbers, but we had like 22 million. So the 12% came to like 500,000, as opposed to them having 11 million on welfare. We had 500,000, but they said it was a greater percentage of Black people on welfare than white folks. No, they meant greater percentage of that segment, but not a greater percentage overall, because most of the money they were on, and most of it was going to them. And that's the way they do it. The same thing. They said you have more Black young men in jail, but they didn't tell you have more Black young men graduating college than you do Black young men in prison. See, they don't tell the numbers correctly. Yeah, we have the greater number of prisoners in prison because they give us more time than they give the rest of them. And we're more likely to go to prison for a crime than a white counterpart. But they don't tell you that we outnumber college graduates, outnumber the number of inmates in prison. They don't tell you that, and they don't promote. Look at it now. They don't promote historical Black colleges like they used to. They don't promote a lot of things that we are a part of. And then when you put them out in the public and they start making their arguments, whenever you get one group to start saying, well, it's unfair, but look at how they go about it. And it is not a fair system. That's my point I'm making. So, and when I say women wanting to take over, I'm speaking in general society now. You have the women saying, no, they want to call the shots. They want to be in charge. They want to make the decisions. Well, traditionally, when the family, and even in the Bible, if they really studied that Proverbs 31 woman, she didn't take over nothing. She didn't try to, usurp authority. What she did was the Bible says her husband trusts safely in her. She took what he produced and she reinvested it and increased it. And she took care of everything. But she also made sure that she honored her relationship and her union with her husband. And she was glorified because of that. Nowadays, it's sad how a woman, not all women, but you got this segment of society, and this is what they promote most of the time. She wants the 666 man. And y'all know what we believe about 666.
No.
She wanted 6 feet tall. She wanted to make 6 figures, and she wanted to have a 6-pack.
Oh Lord.
Yeah. You'd be surprised. And I can't, I'm gonna be like Kevin Samuels. I can't make this stuff up. They actually want that. Now, and then if you think about it, they're vying for the 1% of men who exist in all those 3 categories. The average man makes $67,000 $7,000 a year. But when you take a man, now, this was a situation, and I'm not calling no names, but it was a church situation. The wife, the husband was a mechanic, had been a mechanic for years. He made 60, and in a good year, he might make 80 or 90,000 a year. Put his wife through nursing school. She got through nursing school, and she started out at 90,000 a year. And before long, she was making 135 to 150,000 a year. So they were getting ready to buy a house. And the argument started over, he said, we can't afford this $500,000 house you want to buy. On my salary, we can only afford $230,000. No, you're gonna buy me that $500,000 house. I make good money. He said, yeah, but you don't want to contribute and you want me to pay for everything. I don't make enough to pay all the bills and the mortgage on this $500,000 house that you want to buy. And she said, well, you're gonna buy it and you're gonna find a way to buy it and you're gonna make the payment. He said, well, are you gonna help me? She said, no, because my money's my money. This was a real argument, you know. But I know women. I know some women right now who made much more money than their husbands their whole marriage and never denigrated or emasculated their husbands because they made less money or because they were more educated. But nowadays, it don't work that way. They base everything off of your production, not your manhood, you know, not your good sense. Not your
okay, but what made them do that? What made them go that way? Why did they do that? If they saw their parents and how they worked together, they must didn't see that. They must didn't have that. So it's something wrong with that.
They got confused in society. When we get all these television examples of things and they go off to college and get away, you know, we lose 77% of our young people from church that go to college because they get exposed to some stuff they weren't exposed to, and then they come with a different, that's how the millennials.
Well, I'm glad that didn't happen to Carla because, see, that makes me think about Carla, okay? You know, how we grew up, how she went off and went to Southern University. Then the man that she married got on a Greyhound bus and called it to Oakland and asked Daddy to marry Carla. Now, yeah. She got a good one. She got a good one. And yeah. They married here and went back, and they've been together ever since to today. Now, she's never, I don't know who make the most, but one thing about it, they work together.
Of course.
And they just bought a brand new home. They got a house in Lake Charles sitting there empty that they done already paid for and just bought a brand new one in San Antonio, Texas.
Yep. Well, you know, we've had some good examples of that, but today they don't operate that way. You know, and this is one of the reasons why I always admire your parents. You know, your mother highly honored and exalted your father, and you know, yeah, she had a doctorate. She was a school what they call administrator and teacher and all that. But you don't find that nowadays. You know, I have another friend. His wife is an attorney. He was just a real estate agent, but because of her savvy and knowledge of law and real estate, she ended up pushing him, and he ended up having a very lucrative mortgage loan business. and her being an attorney, she went and she got a she got a what was it? She got a real estate broker's license as an attorney, and they had a very successful mortgage company and all. But it wasn't that thing where she based her relationship on how much he made versus how much she made. They were a team. This is the thing that has been lost. People don't operate anymore as a team. It's like a competition.
One unit. Instead we got one joint account, is your money and my money, and you can't do this. Well, you ain't touching my money. Wait a minute.
And that doesn't happen nowadays. See, that dynamic has totally changed. And so we have, instead of them working together, we have the genders are competing against each other.
Yeah.
It's become a competition, and the competition is really being lost on the male side, because men are getting frustrated and saying, hey, why fight it? I ain't going through all this, and throw their hands up. It's a very, how should I say, it's a very hard battle to wage and to win, because in the real end, the ones who are losing are the children and the next generation.
Definitely.
All right. We haven't heard from Elder Samuel or Bishop. Bishop just come on. Elder Samuel I've been watching his expressions.
Well, we can't see him. We usually can see him.
Oh, I can see him. Yeah. But see, here, my point is this though. We are struggling already in the church with just this what they call marginal beliefs, and marginal salvation, marginal gospel. Everything is almost, and then we got these people who, you can't say in one breath, I want to be married and I want a man, but I ain't selling for less than this, and you set your bar higher than you are even yourself. And then when you ask the question nowadays, the big question they ask the women is, what do you bring to the table? And they say, I am the table. Yeah, that's their response. I am the table. Okay, well, what does that mean? Okay, I need a tablecloth. Are there any dishes to go on the table? Are you gonna cook some food to put on the dishes? You want me to buy the house? You want me to buy the silverware? You want me to buy the china? You want me to buy the furniture? But you want me to go out and make the money? And now you want me to go grocery shopping? And you even want me to cook the food and serve it. You don't. I don't cook. I don't do domestic work, and I don't do that. And when you sometimes you make a statement about you spend too much money. Now you need to make more money. See, this is the kind of stuff that men are dealing with, and it's becoming a struggle, but it shouldn't be. We're supposed to be working together and building together. And if we're going to be one and be a unit, we got to work together, and we can't have this competition all the time. And marginal. That's the thing that I'm really getting at. And especially with the churches, this marginal belief. Everything is on the edge, and this almost mentality. All right, but Sam.
Yes, sir.
Any comments, sir?
Well, I kind of missed the opening premise. So
I'll give you the premise real quick in one sentence. The premise is that the church is fighting now this new millennial thinking that God is just this nice God, and nobody wants to be corrected on their wrongdoing or deal with the aspect of punishment. And then I said, I went to the part of it is that part of the problem in the church also is what we see socially and from the world, and that people just want to do what's comfortable and not to be corrected or to look at themselves as they need to improve or come up. They just want to be accepted as they are. And then I went into some of the influence from the world in regards to the gender conflict and confusion that we deal with.
That's a long sentence.
I'm sorry, sir.
It was a run-on sentence.
I have to say, it was a run-on.
You said I can deal with it in a
my teacher would have docked me on the paper for that.
Yeah. So, what's the solution to this? We see that there's a problem. I agree that, and I thank God for. There's always people who don't conform to quote unquote the norm, but we see that great falling away. But we have to, if we look at the whole situation, we see that for instance, like everything just about is changing. When we all grew up, we all lived in the same neighborhood. We went to the same schools. We were all in the same church community, things like that. Now it's so fractured. That's why I believe there's a disconnect. So until we can figure out a way to bring the community back, both first in the home, how many of us still have the big Thanksgiving dinners at Big Mama's house, or the Christmas at grandma, that kind of thing? So we're not even doing that. The only time that most families that I see get together is at funeral time, and even then there's contention and things that are going on in the family, and we don't come together afterwards. And we say it at the service. We got to put aside all this stuff, and we got to come together as a family. Yeah. But one of course the problem is too many big mamas have left us, and so now we need the next generation of big mamas to come up and be a beacon of light for the young people. And then while we have them, then we have their attention. That's when we need to capture it. I applaud. I was at a funeral service. Was that yesterday? I believe it was, and the minister said, this was his aunt he was doing the service for. He said she preached her own funeral, so I'm here to introduce you to Christ. This is more about what we should be doing. Now, we know our young people have so many more outside things tugging at them, and then we have to be flexible in how we reach out to them. There are some who all they do is criticize the young people that are coming, or they'll criticize the ones that are not coming and ignore the ones that are there. One thing I used to hate in church is when the minister would get up and talk about the people who were not there. And I'm saying, well, I'm here. and they ought to be coming to church, and they ought to be, well, what about me? I'm here. deal with me, feed me.
Right.
So I think, like I said, we just need a new approach. We need to engage the young people. Even like you know, y'all remember, Devin, you too young, but the rest of us remember when Old Happy Day came out.
Mhm.
Big controversy in the church. Oh, that worldly music, yada yada yada. Few years later, it was a staple. Then now Devin, this one may be in your ballpark. When Stomp came out.
Oh my God.
Oh, they playing that in the clubs and that worldly. Now, then it became a staple. See, if it's going to be a problem in the beginning, it ought to be a problem all throughout. Now, I been writing, sometime with my son, and he plays this gospel rap. I'm thankful for the fact that he playing, something that talking about Jesus. But there's many others. Oh, they talk about, well, okay, yeah, a lot of it is, but
you can't understand it.
right. Well, I'm just saying, but they can, and if it keeps them connected, I try to listen to the lyrics, and some of I catch, some of I can't, and the lyrics are within the parameters. But what I'm saying is that we can't just automatically dismiss new things when they come. We need to study them first before we speak out against it. Young people don't necessarily want to come to church in a suit and tie like we did.
Yeah, they want to be comfortable.
But there are others who have issues with that.
Yeah, there's a reason behind that issue, though.
Go ahead.
Example, look at the cheerleaders today. What did they used to look like? Y'all remember
I missed that.
Like? Remember what cheerleaders used to look like? Okay.
I think she said cheerleaders.
I can't hear.
Do you remember what cheerleaders used to look like?
Yeah.
You remember how long their skirts were?
Yeah.
When did people start complaining about the skirt?
When it was a belt.
You know what? Okay, I understand what she's saying, and I know I understand that. But you have some young people that, them big wide leg pants and that's comfortable. You can't tell whether they pants or a skirt. I'm not talking about all them that's trying to come and ain't got nothing on.
Well,
I'm talking about the ones that want to come, but they want to come and be comfortable and, flat shoes and them wide leg pants that look like skirts, and actually I've worn them.
Yeah. Now I don't. Now I will say that if they are on program, we may have a certain way that we want them to present
exactly
themselves. But when they just there to come, there's still those who have issues. Like, okay, now, Devin, when I grew up, we talked about the young man, a young who came to school with rips in his jeans.
Mm-hmm.
Now you gotta pay a pretty penny to buy the jeans already ripped. So, but I'm just saying, so if they were to come to service, let's say in with ripped jeans on, there are some who would vocally rebuke them, but they're there. Not on program, but they're just coming to. That's what I'm talking about. So we have to, so we have to find a way to allow them to, come and participate as, quote unquote members. That's another thing. I'm gonna get to that in a second too. But so that we can teach them, because if they're not there, we can't teach them. That's the, yeah.
That's I hear what you said, and it sounds just like something like Mama would say. Mama couldn't stay. She couldn't. She can't stand for nobody to have Jesus, on church up before this and that. She said, "Listen, we were Jews in the field, and no reason why nobody jeans in the church." And I was like, well, okay, how we talk to her, we kind of got her, kind of down from that, because these jeans cost money. They're the same jeans you wore back in the day. And I'm like, tennis shoes, they ain't the same tennis shoes. I say, but that makes them comfortable. If it keeps them coming, let them in. That's the only thing we're trying to get back up. She can't stay really. It's a woman with pants on.
Yeah, because I will say that if you go to court, if you go to the courthouse before the judge, there is a protocol as far as what you wear. So so we have to teach them the differences.
Yeah.
But like I say, when they just come and like I say, they're not on program, they're not going to be in front of the camera, whatever. They ought to be. We ought not to condemn them because they wore some tennis shoes or whatever,
or jeans and stuff like that.
Right.
Boy, she used to lamb blast my son.
Yeah, but if you can't get them there, then you defeat the purpose. That's what I'm talking about, Devin. Not as a whole. Because I got a saying, and my girls will tell you. my 3 words for them is add a piece. They get dressed, and if I don't think it's covered enough, I'll tell them in a minute, add a piece. Daddy, I got on add a piece. But add a piece. Just make me happy. Just add a piece.
The only reason why I brought up the cheerleading thing was because of how long I was just talking about the progression of time and how much shorter things got with the skirts. Now it's not just, and then you brought up the I'm glad you brought up that court attire, because I'm just wondering, how is it that people have more respect for the courthouse than they do the Lord's house? Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that, like you said, like, okay, with young people, it's different than like people who know better, or people who know better and been raised in church, and especially holiness in Pentecostal churches, they know better. Now, but if you weren't raised in that and you come in, and people want to throw around that one word, come as you are, like it's in the Bible, it's not.
I know. It's
somebody
not.
Can find that for me. But they can't because it's not there. But this whole idea between come as you are has just like I talked about self-love and that whole thing and how it's broken down and how it's just polluted the church. This whole thing about come as you are has also come in and polluted the church to the point to where people are taking that as I can come and stay the way I came in. No, honey. There should be a progression of you changing and becoming better and more the way Christ intended for you to come. And in fact, I just heard a bishop the other day. We were just talking about it last night. He said that the Lord called us a peculiar people. We are different. We are called out. We are set apart. Those people, the Israelites, they didn't weave their stuff together. The 2 different cloths. It wasn't so much because God was just being funny and wanted weird. No, he had a specific way he wanted the Israelites to look. They didn't dress like every other culture. You could easily pick them out. Now, how many Christians can you easily pick out of a crowd? And I'm not saying that's always about the dress, but there should be some form of respect for God's house, at least when you're going in. And you know, you should want to just like naturally just want to dress your best for God is what I'm saying. Now, like,
no, I agree.
Usually people usually dress up more on Sundays, and I see that a lot more too. Like, I can understand that, you know, Bible band people are coming in from work, you know, what have you, YPWW service, they're coming in, and you know, I understand that, and they, some of them, they make efforts though to try to do their best. I know people who they enjoy that part of, they're like, look, I'm going to clean myself up and do my best to look good for God. It's not for everybody else, and it's not supposed to be, but it's become that. And I understand that other side of it, of people just dressing up to try to impress everybody else in the service. It's like, no, you're supposed to be just reverencing God's house. So like, I understand what, you know, that part of what you're saying about, you know, oh, we can't just all expect them to come in into, you know, suits and ties and whatnot, especially if they don't have it, you know, you don't want to make them feel bad. But the idea behind even dressing up in the first place isn't so much about how you look to everybody else, but how you look to God. And so it's just this whole thing about, you know, like, oh, we're going to come dressed down every Sunday, and, you know, we come and be comfortable. No, you're not coming to be comfortable. You're coming to worship God. So, you know, if you have, you know, you don't wear heels. I'm not saying you got to wear heels. I'm not saying you got to wear like the best stuff, but come in the best way that you can, not come in rolling out of bed. Because some of these people, because I went to college, they look like they just rolled out of bed. And you know what? They did just roll out of bed. Some of them just threw on something and they just came, you know, willy-nilly. That's the same way they come to God's house. That's not how it should be. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, I feel you on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But
I feel you on that one.
Yeah. Because see, like, you know, curlers, things, you know, things like that.
There's got to be a self-respect, you know, even outside of the church. Coming out in curlers. Now, you know, them women back in the day, them older women would have cussed you out almost, talking. Why are you walking into Walmart looking like that? Some self-respect.
I remember years ago, I had asked a young man to remove his hat in the sanctuary, you know, and he pushed back on it. And, you know, I didn't, you know, go too far, but afterwards, I did let him know, if you were in the courtroom, you would have no problem taking your head off. So, you know.
That's right.
They would have no problem.
All I was asking you to do was to reverence God's house.
Yeah.
So, you know, but since he didn't want to do it then, I let it go. And then I went to him afterwards and, you know, had a conversation with him, you know, instead of, you know, blasting him out at the service.
You should do it after service, you know, talk to them, get them in a place where they don't have to feel like they have to defend themselves. Just you know, like, look, I'm not after you. I just want you to do better because I know you can.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, yeah. So that's what I have to say, Pastor DACUS.
All right. Well, I'm gonna do my best, Devin, to come as close to that as possible. Stop showing up in my work clothes.
See, that's different. Like I said, there's some people who can't help it, you know.
But you
try your best. You know, put a comb through your hair.
As a matter of fact, I'm gonna just put this out there, because when I was working for Marine Airporter, and I had to come home in my uniform, get my kids, and then get to the church. And Mama didn't like me having my pants on. I'm like, listen, if I stop and I change clothes, I ain't coming.
Right.
She left me alone after that, because I meant it. If I got to take the time after doing everything I done, then got off work, then got my kids, trying to get to the church for whatever's going on, and you gonna fuss at me because I still got my uniform on, either you want me here or I won't come. And she left me alone. Right. Because sometimes you don't have time to try and change clothes, because if you go home and you change clothes and you still trying to get there on time, that's stressful. That's a stressful, thing. And then you might, after you get out your clothes, you might not want to put nothing else back on.
Well,
No.
It's a wrap. So you better be glad that I just picked my kids up, because I would come from San Rafael, go through Richmond, get my kids, and get to the church. And then when I get there, everybody knew I had a headache because my temples looked like they had a nut in them. And Ronnie, one time, a couple of times, he preached about how I used to come and my temples be so swollen just from stress and a headache, but I still came. And then my mama wanted to fuss at me about what I had on. No. And I had to tell her, I'm like, either I'm coming in this or I'm not coming.
See, you pressed though.
And see, that's what I was trying to bring out, the fact that we have to have that flexibility, to allow, not to, well, I'm saying, allow it, but to understand, to be understanding. That's what a lot of times.
I knew people who would come in their like, especially if they're mail carriers, you would know who worked where, but the thing was, I always saw them as, oh, they're working, and they just came off their job to come worship God. So, that's the way I saw that. When I would see people in uniforms and stuff like that, I'm like,
right,
they were working.
And this whole issue of coming dressed in your finest is not necessarily a biblical pattern. This is a tradition, right? Especially in our church.
Yep.
And, a lot of people don't understand that, but
well, it's not what's on you, it's what's in you.
Exactly.
And traditionally, we dressed up because it was the only day of the week we could dress up. So we got put on our Sunday go to meetings, and we got showered and went to church. So, well, listen, if you're interested, because we're going to discuss this for a few weeks, especially on the Wednesday night, get the book. It's called, again, let me get the title. It's called The Round Table, and let me pull it back up. What happened? The Round Table, here it is. A Christian Conversation with Marginal Beliefs and How It Affects the Black Church. It's on Amazon. It's a good book too. It doesn't cost. I paid for the Kindle version, so it was less than $6. But anyway, thank you all for joining tonight. Happy birthday to Sister LZ.
Yay!
Birthday.
Happy birthday.
They're on their way to dinner. That's what Bishop tuned in, or they just sent us a heart. So thank you all for joining. Hope you all enjoyed the discussion, and we'll be back tomorrow, round table. Lord say the same. And let's remember to pray one for the other, keep one another in prayer. So we'll close out now. Father, thank you for your goodness, your kindness, and your mercy. Thank you for how you've kept us and blessed us. Thank you for blessing us this year to see new birthdays and new events and things taking place. Thank you for comforting the bereaved families, and continue to bear us up and encourage us, and continue to teach us and enlighten us, and then empower us with your word. Now bless us as we leave from this setting, but never from your presence. Help us to return again at the appointed time, and we'll give you the glory, the honor, and praise. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, everybody. Good night.
Sister Clit, I had one more